Okay, let's be real. Predicting the future is notoriously difficult. Unanticipated events can just pop up and completely disrupt our best laid plans. But if we look closely at the data and the current trajectories from our source material, we can actually make some incredibly educated guesses about exactly where humanity is headed. So, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're setting the stage to explore a totally fascinating timeline of predictions that will take us all the way up to the mid-century mark.
To do that, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to break this down into 4 distinct eras. First up, the near future. Second, the new space race. Third, a changing Earth. And finally, we'll look at the world in 2050. Let's get right into it. All right, part 1, the near future. Let's look at the immediate changes happening right around us.
So, our near future is heavily shaped by major geopolitical and cultural shifts. We're already seeing new realities emerging, things like the independence referendums for New Caledonia and Bougainville right alongside the UK officially leaving the European Union. And culturally, well, we see some massive landmarks hit, like the 2023 expiration of the very earliest Mickey Mouse copyrights. It really just goes to show how quickly our legal and political landscapes are evolving. Now, if you want to understand the sheer scale of our near-future physical ambition, just look at the Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia. Scheduled for completion in 2020, its target height is a record-breaking, absolutely massive 1,000 meters tall. That is a full, literal kilometer into the sky, making it the brand-new tallest structure in the world. But on the flip side, contrast that insanely rapid mega-tower construction with a very different type of milestone in 2026. That happens to be the year the Catalan Cathedral, Sagrada Familia, is finally scheduled to be completed. And get this, that's after a staggering 144 years of continuous construction. They literally started building it way back in 1882. Moving along through the late 2020s, we start to see a really unified global push forward in both environmental policy and infrastructure. For instance, the UK plans to phase out all of its coal power plants by 2025, and that lines up perfectly with some massive new transit projects happening globally. You've got the Fehmarn Belt Fixed Link, connecting northern Germany and Copenhagen, and by 2029, a brand new high-speed rail is slated to connect San Francisco and Los Angeles. That's going to shrink that massive California commute down to just 2 hours and 20 minutes. Oh, and mixed right into all these global leaps is a genuinely curious cultural reveal. In 2027, the 50-year seal on Elvis Presley's autopsy report finally expires. How wild is that?
Okay, moving on to Chapter 2, the new space race. Let's look beyond our atmosphere. So the big takeaway here is that space is getting incredibly crowded. It is absolutely no longer just a two-nation game. We've got private companies like SpaceX aggressively targeting Mars cargo and manned missions in the 2020s. NASA is aiming for manned asteroid and Mars missions. Meanwhile, China and Russia, they have their sights set firmly on manned lunar missions and entirely new space stations. The competition up there is fierce, and it is totally global. In this same era, Bigelow Aerospace plans to begin constructing an actual space hotel. Yeah, a hotel capable of hosting 6 wealthy guests in orbit. We also see India entering the manned spaceflight arena. Now, by 2024, the International Space Station may actually run out of funding and be decommissioned. But perhaps most astonishingly, if schedules actually hold up, 2027 could legitimately be the year the very first SpaceX crew arrives on Mars. We are talking about the first human footsteps on an entirely different planet. And while humans are physically pushing outward, our ability to just look into the cosmos is getting a massive, massive upgrade. By 2025, the giant Magellan telescope is scheduled to be completed. It'll be the largest observatory in the entire world, and it boasts 10 times the resolution power of the legendary Hubble Space Telescope. I mean, just imagine the sheer clarity of the universe we're about to unlock with that thing. And that brings us to 2036, and honestly, perhaps the most ambitious interstellar project currently on the books. It's called Breakthrough Starshot. The plan here is to send tiny, practically microscopic spacecraft to our nearest neighboring star system, Alpha Centauri. Their specific target is Proxima Centauri b, which is a planet right in the habitable zone. Arriving 20 to 30 years after launch, these tiny ships could take detailed photographs, potentially answering that ultimate question for us. Is there alien life right next door? All right, coming back down to home, Chapter 3, A Changing Earth. Let's dive into the 2030s and 2040s. This era is really marked by a stark duality. We're seeing aggressive environmental policies clashing right up against some pretty grim ecological milestones.
In 2037, predictions suggest we might actually see our very first ice-free Arctic summer. In response to these massive climate changes, nations like France plan to completely ban the sale of all gas and diesel vehicles by 2040. Yet, fast forward to 2048, and the Antarctic Treaty comes up for review. That could potentially open up that pristine, untouched continent to the oil and mining industries for the very first time. Meanwhile, just on the cultural front, 2044 gives us a pretty fun milestone. J.R.R. Tolkien's works will finally, officially, enter the public domain.
Now, all of these changes are happening against a backdrop of immense, and I mean immense, demographic pressure. By the year 2042, the source material estimates that the global human population is going to hit a staggering 9 billion people. 9 billion.
And 2042 is just a fascinating year in our data across the board. Alongside that 9 billion population mark, it's also projected to be the year we see the emergence of the world's very first trillionaire. Just think about that unprecedented concentration of individual wealth. Additionally, the demographic makeup of nations will just continue to evolve. For example, it's predicted that in 2042, Americans of European ancestry will actually become a minority group inside the United States. These combined economic and demographic shifts, they're set to fundamentally redefine global power dynamics and the very core structures of our society. Then, by 2045, we face perhaps the ultimate wild card, the most unpredictable threshold in human history. This is the estimated year of the technological singularity. It's a concept popularized by futurist Ray Kurzweil, and it marks the hypothetical point where artificial intelligence finally surpasses human intelligence. The societal, economic, and cultural changes that will follow that specific threshold, they are completely unforeseen and, frankly, practically unimaginable to us right now. Which brings us to our grand finale, Chapter 4, The World in 2050. Let's look at a mid-century snapshot. First off, consider where humanity will actually be living. An estimated 70% of that massive global population will be living in urban centers. We are looking at a profound, continuous migration of humanity completely out of rural areas and into incredibly dense, highly populated megacities. Environmentally, the data presents a really sobering reality. By 2050, predictions indicate that half of the Amazon rainforest will likely be entirely deforested. It's a very stark representation of the environmental toll exacted by our expanding footprint and those rapidly growing urban populations we just talked about. But what's even more concerning is the strain on basic human needs. The source material projects that by 2050, about half of the global population may not have reliable access to clean drinking water. It really highlights a severe upcoming resource scarcity that's going to require massive global innovation to solve. So all of this builds into this incredibly complex, contrasting reality. Because despite those very real earthly challenges, we're also looking at a highly advanced society. Global average life expectancy pushes all the way up to 76 years. Super smart AIs are just seamlessly integrated into daily life. Self-driving cars are the absolute normal mode of transit. And perhaps most incredibly of all, there could literally be hundreds, if not thousands of human beings actively living and working in actual colonies on Mars. Which leaves us with this final thought. We are looking at a timeline filled with incredible technological triumphs, right alongside some profound ecological and societal challenges. So, with things to be both afraid of and deeply excited for, how will we work in the present to make this future the best one possible? Think on that and keep exploring the data. Thanks so much for joining me